This week we're going to be looking at Adobe InDesign. It's very similar to Illustrator, so I think you'll be able to apply a lot of what we've already learned to this program as well. This video is for the first tutorial on the grid project. I'm going to go to File, New, and show you how to get it set up. So I'm going to call this grid, and I'm going to switch it to inches and leave it at the standard 8.5 by 11 at vertical orientation. I just need one page, and I only need one column, but I just want to point this out. This is pretty cool. I can have it already insert columns for me. They're just going to show me guides. It's not going to do anything else, and choose the amount of gutter space, that's the space in between the columns. I do want to have margins that will only be 1/4 of an inch for this assignment. Okay, so this is our layout. One page, 8.5 by 11 vertical, and margin. So if you don't see that, just open that up. Margins at 1/4 inch. Just for the sake of showing you how you could switch this, I am going to switch it back to Picas to hit create. And now this is in Picas. If I wanted to switch this to inches, I could right click on here and switch it to inches. So this gives me a guide already of a 1/4 inch margin, and it starts here out at 0, which is good. If I wanted to change that so that my 0 starts where the margin is, I clicked into the corner here and I drag it out, and I'm letting it end right there at my intersecting corners for my margins. And now notice how that just moved my 0 over to here. So you could do that at any point if I want my 0 actually to start where the 1 inch starts or whatever. You probably don't, but I just wanted to illustrate that. I'm going to put it back to being over here. Sometimes you may want actually your zeros to start where the margin starts. Okay, so just like in Illustrator, if you don't have your rulers up, you're going to go up under View and choose Show Rulers. At this point, maybe you realize that having the rulers are really useful, so you might want to learn the keyboard shortcuts. Same thing with the guides. So Hide Guide and Show Guide, you have your keyboard shortcut there, and if it's on a Mac, it'll tell you what the keyboard shortcut is. So this plus sign we don't actually type in. That just means you're doing both the control and the semicolon. The first thing that we'll do is set up our boxes, and this is just going to be like in Illustrator. I'm going to use the rectangular tool, and I'm going to give it no fill. So you're going to go up here to the options bar, no fill, and a black stroke of 1. So if you don't see those options, you click on the arrow, choose the none option for the fill, the top one, and for the stroke, you're going to choose black, and then for our points, 1. And I'm not going to hold the shift key down in this example because it's actually supposed to be a rectangle, not a square. Holding the shift key down would lock the proportions. And I can see my little points there. It's telling me how large it's getting to be, and I want this to be 2.5 inches wide by 3 inches high. So I'll just move it out to be approximately, looks like my height's in Picas for some reason. I'm going to switch that. So I'll move this, I'll go up here 2.5 and switch this to 3 inches. So now I can hold the Alt key down and click and drag that out and do the same thing again. And now I probably want to start working with my guides to get exact layout or exact spacing in between my different boxes. For the sake of doing this video tutorial, I'm just kind of eyeballing it, but it's pretty cool in both Illustrator and in InDesign. When I hover over a section, do you notice how it is giving me a line up here in my rulers? So I can actually kind of very quickly see, alright, these are each, they're 1/4 inch apart, and that's exactly what I want, and I'm lining them up to the edges of my margins. So now I can select all 3 by just clicking and dragging across. They're all selected, and do the same method to duplicate them, holding the Alt key down, click and drag them down, and use my smart guides to move them over. You can also always use, oh, I think I duplicated it that time. You can always use your arrow keys as well. To be able to, now I'll use my arrow keys to kind of nudge everything over. I didn't actually drag it with my mouse. And then do the same thing again, select them all, Alt, and bring them down. Okay, so obviously I have to adjust my spacing, and I'll use my arrow keys, and I'll just kind of do it, eyeballing it for right now. Alright, now the next thing is we want to set up our guides, and I asked you to have your guides every half inch starting at the margin. So I am going to adjust my ruler so that it starts here to just make it a little bit easier in terms of the math. So I just clicked and dragged, so now my 0 point is here, and I'll drag my guides out every half inch. So it's every half inch within the box. So now in this one I have to look at where that one starts on the ruler, so I'm not just following along on the ruler. Okay, so I have mine done, and unlike in Illustrator, they're not locked by default, so if I need to click and move them, I could select one of them and move it around. But just take a moment and just double check, did you get all of them to be a half inch? So it's a half inch starting from the edge of the box, not always just following along the ruler, so that's what we should see. Now for each one of these rows, I have you create a different grid structure. So jumping back over to Blackboard for a second. And the first one, I want you to create the grid for the rows every quarter inch, the second one every inch, and the third one every half inch. Okay, so go ahead and grab your rulers starting from the top and start putting them in every quarter inch for the first one.